All right, we are live. It is the Friday FARcast, and I'm Robert Phoenix, and I'm joined, of course, by my esteemed guest, Jasper the Astro Cat, who really kind of, I think, my shirt, my buttons are fucked up. Jasper the Astro Cat dreams the show into existence. I'm actually going to bare part of my chest a little bit here, but you won't really see it. Okay. The Virgo in me does not dig misbutton buttons. Right, Jasper? Doesn't dig misbutton buttons. You're lucky you don't have any buttons. You don't have any clothes. You just wear your clothes. That's an easy thing to do. Well, let some people show up here. I'm sorry I didn't get right on the 12 noon dial. Just putting some stuff together here and just trying to figure out what I was going to do for a show today. And do it in a reasonable way. I think I got it. And then how's my caller? I think we're good. What do you think, Jasper? Am I all right? All right, let's see who we have here. Mr. Sisternino. I've never said that before. Mr. Sisternino. It has a lovely alliteration to it. Mr. Sisternino. Good to see Michael. Susie, born in Fontana. Glad to have her back. You should check out Susie's show, Susie Gemini. She has a YouTube channel. And man, the thumbnail for her latest YouTube show was great. Susie looking mighty fine in her Gemini drip. So well done, Susie. Love the presentation. And of course, your show and style as well. Flat Earth Hippie, also known as Father Time. We're glad you're here. Welcome. Soggy, California. Magic Cat with an ICK is here. Monica Farrow. Hi, Monica. 5DRG. Nice shirt. Thank you. I got this. Where did I get this shirt? I got this shirt somewhere in Fredericksburg, I think. Yeah, it's a Fredericksburg shirt. My man Steve Thor at the door. What's going on, brother? Amy Gill. What's happening, Amy? Thundar is here. Ryan, the head of the Introspective Woodworkers Union of the World. And if you are an introspective woodworker, I definitely recommend you get in touch with Ryan. Ryan, I found this new YouTube channel, and it is so fucking cool. It's this guy that he's a maker. He makes shit, and some of it has to do with carpentry, and some of it has to do with other stuff. What is the name of that channel? Let me see. What is the name of that? It's a really cool channel. I want to go to my subscriptions. I want to see if I can give this guy doesn't really need a shout out because he's got millions of subscribers. But his channel is really good. If you like watching people build things, then make things, and this is the channel for you because he's really good at it. He's very humble, very self-effacing, and good at what he does. Let me see if I can find the darn channel. Let me go into my history now. I got to do this now. I got to give this guy some props. So what he did on one of his videos is he got a shit ton of denim, and then he used some epoxy, and he made a table out of denim and epoxy. Here it is right here. It's called Blacktail Studio, and some of you may know about this channel. I don't have it. I like to watch people who do things that I can't do. That's what I find interesting because I couldn't do some of the stuff this guy does, and to me it's kind of inspiring. And one of the things that I love about this guy's channel is it really speaks to this whole idea of the human experience and being able to be inventive and creative and novel and test ourselves. And he seems like a really cool guy too. So I just put the link inside of the chat here. So if you're somebody who enjoys watching those types of videos, or you're kind of in the maker community, maker world, I definitely recommend it. Who else do we have? Kelly and Kids is here. Melissa Stanton, Thomas Jordan, Mark S in the house. Speaking of creative, let's see, who else do we have here? Ross Johnson. Good afternoon to you, Ross. Scott Ayan is here. Let's see, who else do we have? We got a little link there. Thanks, Ryan, for putting that in there for Miss Susie Gemini's channel. Steve Letro, what's happening? Eastern Shore, Maryland. Steve Letro has the life of Riley, let me tell you. Knight of Cups checking in with us. MJ Chenard. Let's see. Barbara Boots. Yes, you're here. Welcome, Barbara. Misty. Hi, Misty. Back at you. Healing Heart Rosie is driving. Healing Heart Rosie, please don't text while you drive. Unless, of course, you have Waymo driving your car, which I'm not in favor of. Scuba Kel is here. Our deep diver. What's going on, Scuba Kel? Ojos Azules. What's happening? Love, yeah, makers are cool, right? The makers are going to be our bridge to the next world. Moniz Phoenix is here. Ooh, looking for a chimichurri steak today. I hope you find it. Asher Christina, hey, yay. There's my man JR Videos, Jeff Rosen Videos. Good to see you. What's going on, brother Jeff? Warlanda's got a YouTube channel as well. And I had a great chat with Warlanda earlier in the week, and we're going to get her on the Friday FARcast and talk about her life and her channel. And maybe you guys can help her out, give her some subscriptions. She does a really interesting show all about sort of cryptid stuff and paranormal and high strange with her son. So check them out. Ryan knows about Blacktail Studio. Dollars. Ryan, wouldn't you love to have a studio like that? The crazy thing, and if you can believe this guy who has that channel, he only started doing woodworking in 2016. Am I right about that? 2016 or 2019? Like something insanely fresh, like new. And he wanted to challenge himself. And now he's got this incredibly successful maker channel. Let's see. CC Jones. Hey, Fran. Good to see you. Seeger chiming in. I always love to put a Seeger comment up here. Blacktail is great stuff. That's the one wholesome area of YouTube. I agree. I totally agree. And the cool thing that he made this this denim table, and there was this guy who, fashioned these. He created these wooden legs, and there was this guy who did like car upholstery, and he kept wanting to work with him in some way, and so he contacted him, and he had him, because this thing was leather, or I'm sorry, the table was denim, so he wanted to have kind of a leather theme, like a belt, like a leather belt, or a boot, like a leather boot. So he made these really cool legs for the table, and then he had the guy basically sew like leather around them, and then he attached them to the table with like these almost like brass buckles that you would see on a belt with denim. And then he gave it to him. He gave him the table, and it was just it's really like in a lot of ways that's what the Aquarian world is about, right? It's like the future that we want to embrace encapsulates almost everything that video was about. And so what you had is you had somebody, breaking ground and kind of breaking the mold, which is very Aquarian. And it's like, let me see if I can make a table out of denim. Like, who's done that? I mean, I'm sure maybe somebody's done it, but not the way that this guy did it. And he used like, I don't know how many gallons of like um, epoxy resin. I don't know, like a lot, right? So he's doing something different and outside the box, which to me is very Aquarian. And he connects with his community and has a really interesting relationship with his community. And then here comes this guy, he's calling him off the bench. And, now it's a collaborative effort, right? It's all happening through that channel, which again is very Aquarian. And then, in the true spirit of being Aquarian, because the guy helped him out with the table and put in the sweat equity to basically leather up and lace up the legs, he gives him the table, right? And the guy didn't even want to get paid for it. He didn't want any money. He wanted to pay him. He said, I don't want any money. I'm in it just for the love of doing this. And at the end, he couldn't, he had to give him something. So to me, it was really Aquarian, super Aquarian. Let's see, PB's here. Happy day back to you. Maya Rose, I have not forgotten you. My mother, I've had an issue with my mother, so it's kind of been tricky in terms of time and effort. So, and I want to thank everybody who has reached out and wished her well and put in your prayers with the whole thing, and I really appreciate that. And she's doing reasonably well, and hopefully we'll have her home by sometime next week. And yeah, so it's uh, super disruptive, but it is what it is, right? It is part of the it's part of the process and part of the agreements that we make. So there you go. Joe Litkey's here. What's happening, Joe? Pengredy in the house. Travis Newman, hi back at you. Joe Litkey says, hit the like, and please do hit that like. Please hit the like. And if you are not subscribed and you like the content, please hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you are notified, like today with a bit of a late start today. Love the stuff. Father was an artist and came from a lineage of blacksmith and carpenters. Those are all really important trades and skills. And, a long time ago, I think it was back in 2016, and it was when Jupiter was in Virgo, and I was really hyping the maker culture because I thought that this was really where the future was. And it was this interesting kind of intersection between technology and sort of traditional skills and crafts. And I still think that way. I still feel that way. And millennials are actually really good at that stuff. That's one thing. Now, millennials are good at a number of things, but they're really, when they're dialed in and they get that kind of Pluto and Scorpio kind of obsessive focus about certain things, they can really accomplish some amazing shit. So I was really cheerleading for maker culture back when Jupiter was in Virgo, and it's still around. It's still here. It's still a really vibrant part of how people express themselves and keeping some of these trades and crafts alive. Not at the exclusion of using technology and kind of forging parts that you can perhaps cook up with a 3D printer. There's another guy, Jorg Sprague, who has a great. I used to play his videos, Jorg, and he does a lot of stuff with bows and arrows and repeaters and like crazy shit. Right? He's like this mad German sort of inventor. It's also in the maker world, right? He would use things like 3D printers, not just to craft parts, but to also craft the tools that he could use to make the parts or use on the creation of these wild bows and arrows. And I really feel like that's where the future lies, right? It's not going backwards and, just being completely in the Stone Age or the Bronze Age, right? And it's not being sucked into Apple Vision and the virtual hell that awaits, the transhumanist cyborg. It's an interface between older traditions and newer technologies that can work hand in glove, notch and groove together to speed up and facilitate the process while also adhering to things like craftsmanship and standards. And I think it's great. I think it's really, really great. And who knows, maybe as we get into like third decan, Uranus and Taurus, which is the Capricorn decan, that we'll see some really interesting people emerge. We might see some, real kind of maker masters emerge, and maybe even more of a open marketplace for maker culture in general. When I was kind of diving into it, just looking at it from a cultural perspective, it was interesting because there's this shop called Anthropology, which I know that a lot of people know about it, particularly women. And one of the things that I don't think they do it anymore, but one of the things that Anthropology did is that when they would close their doors at night, they, at the end of the business day, they would open it up later on for people that were in the maker culture. And I think that they would have some tools and kind of a workshop or a lab right there in the Anthropology store. And I thought this was really, really great, and that we actually needed more of that. And it's like, okay, well, here we have a retail space that is encouraging people to come into that space and create in those four walls. I don't know if they're still doing it, but if not, maybe they should revisit it, or it would be great if they had more stores that they could do something like that. Let's see who else you have. Oh, Tondar and Kabuki. What's going on, Bo? Hello back at you. Harry Bowie's here. Hey. Brandon Lee. Did you know it was Brandon Lee's birthday the other day? I almost did him on the Star of the Day. Almost did him, but who did I do? I did somebody else. I think I did Derek Jarman. I think they're the same birthday. Rainbows and butterflies. What is it? Happy Friday to you. Deborah Donaldson. Hi, Deborah. Welcome to the show. Victoria V. Double V. VV. What's happening? Have you all heard our statewide alert for a cop killer? No. So what is that? Tennessee? We have a cop killer in Tennessee. If you're in Tennessee, be on the lookout. Oh, host Azules. I do textiles, Mars and Gemini, a little bit of everything. Master of nothing. Geminis are the great generalists, aren't they? Or aspects of Gemini, the great generalists. Can you put the link in, please? I will sub. God, I don't know if I have. I'm not sure if I have Warlanda's. Let me see if I can do this. Let me go into YouTube. See if we can find it. Let's see, what do we have here? Oh, hold on. Let's see what we got here. The internet is slow. Here we go. Let's put her YouTube channel right on there. And it's a place for others to share their experiences with the paranormal, supernatural, UFOs, aliens. So if you have had things like an NDE or an abduction experience, and you want to have a forum to share that, let's put it right in there. Whoa. Let's do a little visual for Warlanda's page here. so we can give people an idea. Right there. There you go. We got a channel trailer. And here we go. Look at all these shows and all these cups of coffee. I love it. We got some shorts, and apparently Rolanda's got some new ink there. Getting into cryogenics, connected astrology chart, Apple Visions in public. So they're creating content every single day over there at the coffee house. So there you go. Check it out. All right. Ross, you're welcome. Some people say I take too much time acknowledging comments. That shows up in the comments every now and then. What's happening, Ms. J? Let's see, what else do we have here? It happened not far from me. Many shared friends with the guy. Ooh. All right, Kelly, be on your toes. Be on your toes. Situational awareness. Let's see, who else do we have here? Yeah, the denim table. Fuck, it was cool. It was really cool, I have to say. Aaron L., I have seen that. Sync. Let's see. AFA, nothing wrong with a bit of man chest. More of it, I say. Well, I used to have more of it back in the day. Back in the good old days, I had the disco chest. Not so much anymore. Ojos, yeah, it's an interesting part of the journey. That is for sure. Ms. Behaving 2 is here. Monica Farrow is going through the same thing with her parents. It seems to be like we have a whole generation that's just aging out. And that's why so many people are going through it. It's the aging out process. It's just on the game board right now. He's still on the loose. Psycho killer. Kiss kiss say. Run, 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 run away. Oh. Aaron else is like electric pressure canners. I think that would be a good example of that. Let's see. Making moonshine is part of my heritage. I don't know how, but I have a friend that knows. I think in the post-industrial collapse, moonshine would be a pretty good product to have in general. Yep, in general. Myra says my son does a wood turning, making chess figures. Really cool. Good. Lisa Ann White is here. It's about time, Lisa. No, just kidding. Yes, find a maker's community. Coco Studios. I love anthropology. Yeah, I mean that. I don't know if they're still doing the makers after hours, but I thought that was really cool. It can't rain all the time. Only in Blade Runner. Only in Blade Runner does it rain all the time. T. Witten 828. What's happening? Good to see you. Did I say hi to Moira in New York? Well, here's Maria in France. We got a twofer. Let's see. Who else do we have? Hucklebuck Forline. What's up, Huck? I am a generous spirit. I'll blame that on Jupiter in Sagittarius in my first house. Algie. Thank you, Algie. Appreciate that. She's her condition is stabilizing. Thank you. Catherine Kramer, Double K is here. Catherine's got herself a little maker thing going on with her Etsy store, which we've highlighted here. Let's see. User 13 in the house. Look at that. Orlando's getting some love already. Cassandra Lynn likes Psycho Killer. Oh, love Warren Zevon. Oh, that's it's a little bit different. Warren Zevon is great though, for sure. He shot back, fled the scene before they could call anyone. Kelly, I hope you're equipped, if you know what I mean. I hope you're equipped. CR user, Biden is too senile to be indicted, but we're going to talk about that today. We are going to talk about that today. Heard of someone surviving Russia collapse by making vodka in her bathtub? Absolutely. Those kinds of things in a black market economy are worth a lot. Kabuki Bo says, my caregiving experience was challenging, but so worth it. Respect to the caregivers. Not everyone is cut out for it. You know, I'm generally pretty good, and then I'll hit my wall every now and then. You know, I'm just being honest. I'll just hit my wall every now and then. And you know, and then you kind of reboot and get back in the game and do your best. Bodhisattva, good afternoon. Let's see. Manassas, Virginia, Vautech, 1979. I think we're caught up here. I think we've gotten to the end. Etsy is so oversaturated. It's hard to be found. I gave up. It is. There's a lot of politics in Etsy, and especially around the holidays when certain stores get highlighted over others and all that jive, right? So yeah. And Etsy started out on really good ground, and it's where a lot of makers were surfacing their material and their wares. And just like everything, kind of gets oversaturated, taken over, gamed, algorithmed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, we're all here now. I'm not going to. Before I start, there are a couple things, couple orders of business that I have to take care of. Number one, me and Mr. Dog are doing a serious sports show tonight, 6 p.m. Central. That's happening here. And I have done some deep diving on the foundations of the Kansas City Chiefs and also the San Francisco 49ers. You're not going to want to miss it. It is, I don't think there's anything else anybody's talked about in terms of these teams and this game. Some of this information is going to flip your fucking lid. So please join us 6 p.m. right here back at this channel. The other thing is True Hemp Science is having a sale, and it is a Valentine's Day sale. So let me go over to the website there, and all of the water soluble products they're on sale. And I got a code for you and everything. Let me see what we got here. Let me go back. I just had it. And it blipped out. Hold on. I didn't know Chris had a manifesto. I just noticed that. Better be careful. Better be careful. Here we go. Here we go. This is it right here. Let me throw this up on the page, on the screen. Here's the water-soluble selection. And Chris has a bunch of new stuff here. Hypnotica, Blistopia, Nocturna, Synapta. I think they're all pretty self-explanatory. This is going to be for brain focus. This is for kind of repairing and calming your system. This is the big one right here, GBG plus CDB Nano, Relaxed Focus, G32 Blistopia. And then we have the CBD, CBN Organic Sleep Remedy. And I know it is not affordable, but you're getting the cream of the crop, and you don't need to use a lot of this. Like Chris will tell me, just use 3 drops. Like that's all you need is just 3 drops. And the password to get the goodies, let me get you the secret code. It's not the password. It's the secret code. Let's see. Let's see. The password is all caps. Love is water. All caps. LOVEISWATER. And that will allow you to get a discount on the water soluble products. Now, that means, you're already going to get 25% off if you get the bundle, but you can get a discount on any one of these products. And what is the, trying to, let me just text him here. It's one little important detail that he's left out here. He'll text me back. But love is water, all caps, write that down. And again, if you want to find out more about what this stuff does, you can call Chris, make an appointment, and he'll break it off. This is next level CBD, right? Totally next level. And especially when you get into the CBG plus CBD nano. Now, if you have had the moon dust gummies or you've had the sleep gummies, you know what CBG is all about. CBG will take you into the same kind of realm that THC will, but with a very different kind of effect. Let me see if he's responding. I'll just keep the sucker. Anyway, there you go. And if he chimes back in at the before the end of the show, I'll make sure that I post it or fill you guys in on what the discount is. Love is water, all caps, True Hemp Science. And of course, if you get anything over $100 more, with the exception of this, because you're going to be in the discount zone already. So the other products, type in 15MINS, and you will get free your free goodie bag with free goodie stuff. $150 more, get you free shipping. So there you go. I'll just wait for his text. Okay. So where do we want to start today? I wanted to talk about Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin and the conversation that they had. My takeaway, and not that I ever thought that Vladimir Putin was the great white knight. I've never thought that. I thought he was mildly interesting as a disruptor in the same way that Trump is interesting as a disruptor. Of course, their styles are vastly different, but make no mistake, Putin is a disruptor, and he's very clever. And we all know that there's the possibility of multiple Putins and maybe clones, robotoids, whatever, right? So whoever we got last night, of course, was very serious and in many ways lectured Tucker Carlson. It was interesting, right? Like he went through a half-hour dissertation on the history of Russia, its connection with Ukraine, and all these other things. And just at a surface level, we'll kind of drop down a few levels, right? But at a surface level, it's clear that Putin, and whoever this Putin or whatever this Putin is, we'll just call him Putin, that he is head and shoulders far beyond almost any current politician or somebody who is a theoretical head of state, like a governor, or somebody inside of Biden's cabinet, or somebody inside of the Senate chamber, or this. He's head and shoulders above them in terms of like gravitas and being able to articulate a situation in a very in-depth and nuanced way. Now, keep in mind, Putin every year will have a State of the Union address where he talks for 8 hours. And he will field questions from the press, but the questions better be good questions, if you know what I mean, right? So, what did last night accomplish? What did it accomplish? Here's what I think it accomplished. I think what Putin was able to do was, in many ways, continue to build on the demoralization program that the Soviet Union had started as psychological warfare a long time ago. And keep in mind that Putin was a fairly high-ranking member of the KGB. And it was through his friendship and relationship with Boris Johnson, or Boris Yeltsin, rather, another Boris, that he was able to ultimately secure his position on top of the Politburo and become the leader of Russia. You had Boris Yeltsin coming, he's the guy theoretically that's going to steer Russia, into the sort of the funnel of the 21st century, because Yeltsin shows up in the early 90s. He's the guy that comes in after Gorbachev. He's kind of a known alcoholic and is easily pushed around and moved around. There's a story about Yeltsin when he came to the United States and he went to a supermarket in Houston and he lost his shit. He lost his shit. Like, it was an everyday kind of supermarket, and it was far better than even the best food market, grocery outlet that they had in the Soviet Union at the time. And that like shook him to the core. So he understood what he was up against in terms of ramping up Russia so that it could have a seat at the table with this leviathan of capitalism and lifestyle, right? And that's when he begins to lean on Putin. And of course, once Putin kind of secures the reins of power, he renationalizes everything. Because you had these oligarchs that were just sharpening their knives so they could, once the former Soviet Union was no longer doing business, it was like, yeah, let's get in there and let's grab these assets. And one of the assets was the petroleum company called Yukos, which was essentially being bought for rubles. I don't know if there's a diminutive rubles, like pennies on the dollar, kind of like that, by Mikhail Khodorkovsky. And what did Putin do? He stopped the sale, he nationalized Yukos, and he put Khodorkovsky in jail. That's how these things are done, right? That's how people accrue power. I am not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. It is part of the world that we live in. This whole idea of having some kind of Christian ethos where everybody, gets a win-win out of the deal is a complete fallacy at that level, right? In the meantime, these other oligarchs are taking their money out of Russia and they're buying shit, right? Like Roman Abramovich says, I don't want Putin taking my money. I'm going to go buy a professional English soccer club. And that's what he does. He buys a professional English soccer club. And that's kind of how these other guys are they're like, hey, let's put our assets into things that can't be taken. And so they kind of, and I think ultimately and eventually, Putin winds up creating alliances with these oligarchs. And even Khodorkovsky, whom eventually he releases from prison. And they ultimately, I'm not sure they're all warm and fuzzy. And, Roman Abramovich goes back and vacations on the Black Sea during the summer. He might, I don't know. But it's clearly not the same situation that it was when they all left because they didn't want their shit taken, like Khodorkovsky. So this is where, Putin kind of comes in and puts a stamp on dealing with Russia and dealing with Russian resources and Russian assets. He doesn't want them taken out of the country. He wants to maintain some degree of control. And why wouldn't he? It's a kind of a new nation that's coming out of the rubble, right? And so you need to have kind of everything as much intact as possible. So you have a kind of a puncher's chance to, join the 21st century, which I think to Putin's credit, I think that the Russians have done that in spite of all of the sanctions. And in many ways, the sanctions have made the ruble even stronger, which is an interesting thing, right? So here we have the two of them. And Tucker seems to be asking pretty good questions. But it's clear that Putin has the upper hand in the entire conversation. And he even chastises Tucker at the beginning. Are we doing a talk show or are we having a serious discussion? Right? He's putting Tucker on blast right at the start of the interview. And then what he does for the majority of the interview is he kind of runs down the United States. And I have seen the reaction from a number of conservatives who are praising Putin for his breadth of knowledge, his capacity to put things into a historical context, to communicate in a way that has gravitas without sound bites or filler or I don't know, inspiring platitudes, right? Like he doesn't come across that way. And it shows how hungry we are, how thirsty we are for leadership that is serious. And I'm not here to back Putin. I'm not saying, oh yeah, well, this guy's the model and we should all follow it. I'm going to get into more of that. But it just shows how hungry and thirsty we are for something like that. When was the last time we had a leader in this country that spoke to people in a way that had context and history and could articulate it so that the common American could understand it? One could make a case for Reagan. I never liked Reagan, but when you go back and you listen to Reagan, whoever Reagan was, post-assassination attempt, he's quite good at contextualizing things and having them contextualized in a way that I would say the middle American could understand it. He was good at that. Whether or not you bought into it, whether or not you thought it was hype or fluff, that's a whole different question. Obama could have, but he didn't. And when he did, it was always going to check the box of race or check the box of equity or check the box of the historical record, right? So it's kind of like we're getting it, but it's empty calories, and it's not really serving everybody. It's serving a portion of the people or a portion of the electorate. So Obama kind of had the tools, but when he used them in a way that was deconstructive. We're going to lead from behind. That was a famous comment. It's time for America to lead from behind. Okay. No homosexual jokes allowed here. Well, you could, but this channel doesn't really go there. You know what I'm saying about Obama? Okay, so let's look at the Bushes. Did George Bush communicate in that way? Fuck no. He didn't communicate that way at all. What about his father? The only time his father communicated with gravitas was when he was trying to sell the New World fucking Order. And he tells his New World Order speech or his 1,000 points of light, right? He rolls out his sort of, Illuminati talking points. And all of a sudden, the guys that, he's, Abraham Lincoln, right? But it's only within the context of stuff like that. Otherwise, he's no Putin. What about Clinton? Does Clinton even qualify? No. Clinton is all about aw shucks and hey and y'all and making people feel good while they're basically carting off the cash out of the back door with all the deals with China. Clinton was the feel good president, right? We're going to have a president that is going to help people feel good. We just had 4 years of this nasty old man Bush. Clinton's kind of like Obama 1.0, right? He's kind of like the white Obama in some ways, although not as extreme as Obama. But you know what I'm saying? They both follow Bushes. They're both Leos. They're both feel-good presidents, theoretically, until they're not. Go back further, prior to Bush, of course, we have the aforementioned Reagan, who I do think counts. But I'm not a Reagan guy. But Reagan's getting close to being able to talk about global affairs at a deeper, more historical, contextual level. Prior to Reagan, what do we have? Carter. Carter was a smart guy. He was a theoretically nuclear scientist, right? But Carter was hampered by his own politics and polemics. Carter, for all intents and purposes, was a hand-picked socialist. That's what he was. And the country was shite under Carter. Gerald Ford, are you kidding me? Talking in the same way or in the same sort of historical context as Putin, fucking forget about it. I mean, really, you'd have to kind of go back the ways. Maybe Kennedy. Like Kennedy had the potential to talk about things with a certain gravitas, right? When he goes to England, or I'm sorry, Germany, does the Ich ein Berliner speech. Like, who the fuck could pull that off now? Like, that's charisma. And again, Kennedy's very flawed, but he has the right stuff to be able to do those things. Johnson couldn't. Johnson had, he's had the Texas drawl and talked in a way that was, was a turnoff to a lot of people. Real turnoff to a lot of people. He's he's a Texas good old boy, right? So again, it's not like we've had these people in positions of power. And I think what's interesting is that I would not call Putin a populist. In America, it's funny. Like, we tend to shy away from so-called elites theoretically, right? And an elite on an intellectual level would be, I don't know, let's say Victor Davis Hanson. He would be somebody that could provide that sort of historical context in a way, but he's not a president. He's not even a politician. Thomas Sowell, when he was younger, could do something like that. So it's not like we haven't had these people, and if I spent 5 minutes, I could poke around and find a number of them that could, in a situation, provide that kind of context. But that's not what America craves. America craves, theoretically, populists, or America craves, now America wants, outsiders, political outsiders. And when you're a political outsider, it just depends on what's inside. Like, whatever's in, the outsider brings the outside game. Oh, we like that. We like that because all these other people have done the same old thing over and over again, and they've preyed upon that. Obama was an outsider. Oh, look at him. He's black. Look at him. He's smart. Oh, look at him. He went to Columbia. Oh, look at him. He went to Harvard. He's not George Bush. Boy, he's an outsider. And that's how Obama got elected, because he went up against a stiff-old cutout insider in John McCain. Obama fit that. Obama was also, in some ways, a populist, right? He is projecting himself to be a Democrat, and the type of Democrat that used to care for people, right? The Democrat that looked after the working class man and woman, the Democrat that supported strong unions, the Democrat that made sure that there was going to be limits on spending bills for the military-industrial complex, the Democrat that made sure that corporations and big business weren't going to just dump their byproducts, their sewage and their chemicals into the waterways of the United States of America, right? Those kinds of Democrats. So Obama is kind of positioning himself in that way, but he's really not, right? We know that he's not, but that's how, so he's kind of a populist. He's kind of an outsider, kind of an outlier. Hello. And then we get 8 years of that, and we want a different kind of version of that. So we get Trump. And that's exactly what Trump is. He's a populist. He's an outsider. He's an outlier. And how long does he last? 4 years. And again, however it all happened, right? However this Ponzi scheme sort of, figured out who was going to be president. What did we get? We got a senile old man, which was all part of the plan anyway, right? There's a whole other side of that. But why? Because Biden is in some ways a cipher of a populist. What do I mean by that? He's not clearly a populist. If you go into the Biden background and track record, the guy is just a fucking leech. Like, he's a leech, and his political positions change as much as a chameleon changes its colors, its spots, whatever, right? I mean, just go back historically and look at what at one point he talked about, and later on what he doesn't care, right? So, but because he was kind of old and grandfatherly, right? He was this guy who was not going to be mean and nasty and talk in a gruff sort of way and insult people like Trump did. That's a type of populism. It's like, we all love Grandpa, and Grandpa loves ice cream. So we're going to vote for Grandpa and love ice cream. And we'll have an ice cream. Grandpa will take us down to the ice cream parlor, and we'll have a nice little ice cream cone with Grandpa. You see how that works? Do you think that him licking an ice cream cone, chocolate chip, was by accident? Fuck no. That was all part of the programming that gets inside of people, right? It's like, oh, that's what I did with my grandpa. My dad was mean and nasty. but not my grandpa. He bought me ice cream. It's programming. So Biden kind of comes in as a kind of gentle, banal populist. The type of guy who, again, if you're a kid and you don't want to deal with the harsh disciplinary actions of your father or your mother for that matter, but mostly your father, you go to the grandpa. What will grandpa do? He'll spoil you. Right. And that's how they kind of built his campaign. But even though he's a populist, he's not going to be able to talk like Putin. Right. So we have been fed a steady diet of populists and outsiders, populists and outsiders. And every now and then we'll get a dyed in the wool sort of, family track candidate like Bush and Bush too. Clinton was an outsider. He was this guy from, Arkansas, right? And he played a saxophone and the women liked him and he looked cool and he was on Arsenio Hall. That's an outsider. But because he's Southern and because he has a drawl, right, he's not going to sort of fit those archetypes of the North. It's not going to happen. So we're hungry. People that have any kind of development, right? Any kind of development, political development, intellectual development, social development, and even to some degree, spiritual and religious development. We live in a land that's parched for those kinds of things. And when somebody like Putin comes along and is given a 2.5-hour platform to show that, they're like, we want more of that. We don't have that here. We don't have that. No, of course you don't have it. And there's a reason why you don't have it. And, Putin might even be one of the reasons why. I am not wholly convinced that the Russians aren't still running propaganda programs. And I may sound like Joy fucking Reid or somebody on MSNBC. I see no evidence to the contrary that Russia ever gave up propaganda games. No evidence to the contrary whatsoever. And they were the masters of propaganda. Remember Yuri Bezmenov. Yuri Bezmenov, when he was with David Ray Griffin, talked about basically how they operated, how the KGB operated. And they were fully invested in propaganda and psychological warfare against the people of the United States. And then what he talks about is one of the final stages. Well, one of the final stages is demoralization. There's a stage after demoralization, which is normalization. And so to get to normalization, you have to be demoralized. My God, how much more demoralized as a nation and as a people can we be? We have been completely demoralized, and it's been a long, long tail operation. Starting with the death of Kennedy, Vietnam War, Watergate, Carter, you name it, a few respites along the way. 8 years of Reagan, a couple months of Trump. That's it. Maybe a little bit after 9/11, when, the world sort of sided with us for a while until Bush and the neocons, shit on everything after that, right? Like the demoralization program has been in full effect for a very long time. And that's why when people see somebody like Putin, he stands out in kind of a 2D universe. Putin pops out. And it's because whatever you think of Putin, he is demonstrating a degree of leadership in a way that this country does not have. This country doesn't have any real leadership. And we can get into that and break that down, but it doesn't. So when people look at Putin, they go, oh my God, look at that. Boy, I wish we had that. I was on a lot of threads, whether it was Matt Walsh's threads or Jason Whitlock's threads, conservatives were horny for that. Horny for that. And it serves as clearly a symbol of disparity to what the Russians have and what we have or don't have. That said, I think what we witnessed was a psychological operation. That was a psychological operation. Now, you have to ask yourself, well, was Tucker Carlson in on it? Maybe. I don't know. They're both wearing, little red bracelets. Let me show you that. This was a courtesy of my buddy Misaki. He sent me this. So let me pull this off. I want to like Tucker Carlson. I really do. Oh, shit. Why is it that when why is it that when I get a text message, it comes into this? Oh, okay. Well, thank you. GIMP. Helping me out here. Thank you, GIMP. Let me see what we got here. My desktop needs a good cleaning. I have too many images on it. And I just saved this one. What do we have here? Let me try this again. Let me do this. Save as. Let's try this. Okay. Hold on. We'll get there. There we go. There we go. Here we go. Save in desktop. There we go. All right. Got it. Got it. All right. Let me find it. Here it is. We got it. All right. Bring it up here. And I'll throw it in the tab section. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that these two fellows would be wearing the same thing. Right here. So here we have, now this is not during the same interview, but here we have Putin wearing the red thread. And here we have Tucker wearing the red thread. And this is what people who are initiates into Kabbalah wear. And where would you find something like that? Would it be an offshoot of Chabad? Could be. Could very well be. Right. But this is a colorful tie that potentially binds these two men. I just have to put it out there. Just have to put it out there. So there was nothing in that interview that was anything but there was nothing groundbreaking. There was nothing revelatory. There was nothing liberating. There was nothing. I wouldn't say there wasn't anything insightful, because I think that there are probably a number of things that Putin said that, if you looked at the U.S. and the U.S. policy and doctrine, that yeah, sure, there's some insight into that. But there were, he said that he talked about using the dollar as a form of hegemony, and that this was a byproduct of the U.S. establishment, and that that it was an absolutely wrong thing to do, and the establishment in the U.S. was behind using this dollar as the cudgel, and that ultimately would be the downfall of the United States of America. Okay, who is the establishment? Like, who is the establishment? And I don't believe Tucker Carlson asked him a follow-up question. That would have been a follow-up question. That would have been, well, who do you believe? The term establishment is quite broad. Can you be more specific about who the establishment is? Like, what establishment are we talking about? It's one of it's one of those kind of catch-all terms like deep state. And in fact, that was a term, the establishment. That's a term from like the 60s and the 70s, kind of predated deep state. Oh, it's the establishment. Oh, it's the deep state. But there were no names being named, right? What else did they not do? They didn't talk about the World Economic Forum. They didn't talk about the global issues that we're being faced with. None of those were ever addressed. None of them whatsoever. Tucker was going down this line where he was trying to, I don't know, illustrate America-Sino relationships amidst the backdrop of a post-Cold War, bombs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think it was very good. I think it was interesting in the sense that for this new medium, it connected a lot of eyeballs in a way that had never been connected before to this degree. But I'm thinking to myself, what a fucking waste. It was a waste. And if anything, what did we find out? That we're a shitty country, and that that we're doomed to fail, and that the rest of the world is going to, basically climb on our backs and take us down. That's what that was about. And Putin may have made a lot of sense, and he may have been able to, piece together historical data to prove his point about Russia and to prove how bad the establishment is. And is that your takeaway from this? Do you want that to be your takeaway? Now, clearly, you don't have to be somebody who can, because a lot of what Putin's saying to a large extent is true, but he's not bringing the receipts in the way that we, the people of this country and the world, need to see. And he has them. He has the receipts. Why? Because Russia and the former Soviet Union have been intelligence gathering for decades. They have the receipts on everything. And what did he choose to do? He chose to give the people, the United States, a lesson. And a lesson in how much he knew, how much, in some ways, more cultivated Russia was, and why this country is doomed to fail. What does that do? It's demoralizing. It's demoralizing. It's like, oh yeah, geez, look at this guy. Fucking judo master. He does 8-hour press conferences, and we got a guy who's shitting his pants and eating ice cream. And oh yeah, doesn't that look like? Isn't that a good look? No, it's not a good look, and it's meant not to be a good look. It's meant not to be a good look. And now we have Biden, and the DOJ says, well, he's incompetent to stand trial. Like that came out right around the same day Tucker Carlson is doing this. Do you think that this is just by happenstance? No, it's not. So how demoralizing is it to understand that this clown or whatever he is in the White House is completely incompetent, incontinent, cannot even occupy the same stage as Putin. And then we find out that he's so incompetent that if he were to be brought up on charges, it wouldn't stick. It would be like an insanity plea. Now, I don't think this bodes well for his presidency. I talked. We did a group Zoom. When was that? I think back in January. And I had some predictions. And one of my predictions was that Biden would be gone by sometime in February. Where are we? The 9th? We're close. We're very close. And then we get Kamala Harris. Talk about demoralizing. Nothing has really changed. Nothing has really changed from when Yuri Bezmenov brought this to people's attention many years ago. So what is the stage after demoralization? It's normalization, meaning that we get used to this shit. And we just think that this is the way it is. Moving forward, we're just going to, be in the movie Idiocracy. That is normalization. And we are there now. And then you know what's after normalization? Collapse. And Putin is basically telling everybody that that's where this is headed, is collapse. Do I think that Tucker Carlson is part of this? I don't really think so. Tucker Carlson has kids. He either has grandkids or he will have grandkids. And I do think Tucker has an investment in the future for those reasons, right? And I think that part of him is real. But he is the son of a deep state actor. He went to all, the Tucker story, right? Like Tucker's transformation took place during the Trump administration. And he finally kind of crawled out of his old school Republican shell, right? And then eventually all this leads to his dismissal from Fox, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't necessarily think he is in on some grand conspiracy between Donald Trump, Alex Jones, the United States, Vladimir Putin, and Russia, although they all seem to be kind of cozy in some ways. I will say that. And I don't want to come off sounding like a crazy Democrat. But he provided the platform for this to happen. And that platform is ultimately how it is operating right now is basically, delivering things and telling us as a country that we're screwed, we're bad people, we have bad leadership. Most of it is true, by the way. He's not lying. But what he doesn't do is he doesn't address the global picture. He does not talk about Israel. He does not talk about what's happening in the Middle East. Sure, he and Tucker kind of, play a little pickleball with Ukraine. But even then, right, he doesn't really get down into the nuts and bolts of Valerie Newland and the color revolution and the neocons who are off creating new wars again, right? Doesn't touch on any of that. Doesn't touch on, again, what's happening with the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab and what's happening in Europe with the quote unquote agricultural revolution, right? And the tractor revolution doesn't really touch on any of that stuff, which could have been good. It could have been good. Now, I don't know if Tucker was given talking points. Like, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that. And I think those would be interesting questions to ask Tucker. I think they would be. Now, maybe he would say that nothing was off limits and we could ask him anything we wanted. Well, good. Then why didn't you? Then why didn't you do that? Why didn't you expand the talking points? Because the global situation, in a lot of ways, is pressing down upon this country, in the shoulders of the people in this country and in other parts of the world as well. Now, I have always held the opinion that Vladimir Putin is not some kind of white knight. And there are a lot of people in the so-called conservative and patriot movement who are, I think, really misguided about Putin. I'm just going to be straight up. They're really misguided about him. And again, we're so hungry, just like there are conservatives who are so hungry for somebody who could address the situation the way Putin kind of addressed Tucker Carlson, at the level of a world leader versus a cackling hyena or a senile, Depends wearing ice cream cone grandpa president, right? They're just like creaming their pants for somebody like him. The same thing could be said for the conservative movement or the patriot movement. Why? Because Putin is white. He looks white. And he's not doing what he's being told to do. And not only is he white, but he's also Russian Orthodox. So he's religious as well. And these are all symbols. And they're all trappings. And I'm not sure Putin gives a shit about the Orthodox Church. But it's clear that from an organizing principle, that it's important for his people. And it's important for him in the world stage to show that he is not like his predecessors who had one token chapel in Moscow. Anytime anybody went to Moscow and wanted to question whether or not, this idea that religion was the opiate of the masses, they would take him to this one chapel and they say, oh, look, we have this beautiful chapel here. And there would be people in there and they'd be praying and be lighting candles. And the naysayers would be satisfied. They'd be like, oh yeah, see, they're not God-hating commies. They embrace it. It was one fucking chapel, one church. That's all it was. And it was really there for those specific purposes. That's it. I don't think Putin is a good guy. I don't think he's on our side. I think he and whatever he is, it's very cagey. Very, very cagey. Because he has all the trappings that make it look like, hey, he's one of us. Hey, I'd like him as our president. And then you look back over here and you go, well, this is the contrast that we're being seen and shown. And I don't think that is really who or what we need. I think in a lot of ways, it's an illusion. That's who he is. And again, people are so hungry and so bereft of anything that resembles something that they could relate to and be inspired by, that they'll grab onto it. They'll want that. And that's how he's become so popular in a lot of ways. I don't trust him. And I don't want to sound like a freaking, crazy Democrat or liberal who feel the same way. It's like, please, when people come to power, they come to power and they seize power They steal elections. They come in, and what do? They perform psychological operation. How easy do you think it was for George Bush to be elected to a second term after 9/11? Slam dunkin'. And just to make sure that he got elected, they ran his skull and bones buddy, John Kerry, just to make sure that they hadn't shit in their bed too many times after 9/11. Yeah, let's make sure that this guy kind of rolls over, right? So they were hedging their bets just in case. I don't think he's a good guy. I don't think he's on our side. And that's my theory. That's my opinion. He is waging. So let's talk about Ukraine. He doesn't want NATO on his border. I get it. I totally get it. Crimea has always been a part of Russia. Okay, sure, no problem. I get it. The eastern side of Ukraine, clearly more Russian. I get it. Right. So there's this talk of NATO coming in with Ukraine. And what does he do? He's like, well, just stop doing what you're doing and get out of eastern Ukraine. And then, we'll call it a day. And what does Ukraine do? They don't do it. They say, fuck you. We're gonna amp it up. We're gonna raise the stakes. So what does Putin do? He moves in. Now, are they working together? I don't know. But I tell you what I do know is that if Putin wanted to, he could have ended that war a year ago. Easily could have ended that war a year ago. So what happens? Well, the United States drains its resources, drains money into Ukraine, drains weapons into Ukraine. And don't you think that Russia notices this? Russia's happy to keep the war going. And if they run out of conscripts, what do? They'll just say, they'll pull a Stalin. You go and fight, or guess what? You're done. You're going to prison, or at the very least, we'll take you out of the game. I mean, that's what Stalin did. He could have ended this war a year ago. So the idea in America, they sit down and you get Lloyd Austin and Blinken, and if they're not on the same table already with Putin, which they might be, they say, look, we're going to force the Russians to use up all their resources. That's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to win this war. Who do you think has burned more weapons and resources in Ukraine? United States or Russia? My money's on the United States, because Russ Winter and I went through, we looked at all this stuff, right? All this stuff around what's been spent, what's been used, how long it takes to rebuild these weapon systems and replenish them. And we are kind of SOL with this, right? Because we've been sending all this shit to Ukraine. And there's no way Ukraine's going to win that war. This war is in favor of Putin on so many levels. So he's winning again. Once the sanctions came into place, once all the stuff with the oil came into place, what did Putin do? The ruble went up. Their oil skyrocketed. Russia, even with all the sanctions, is in a better financial position they were than before the war. So who is it really benefiting? I'm just not down with. I'm not down with it. I'm not down with this guy. I'm not down with the notion that he is the great white knight. It's all part of the program. All part of the program. And again, just to end this one chapter, and then I'm going to move on to another chapter. The chapter is to demoralize you. That's what this is all about. Longing, wanting. Oh, I wish we could have that. I wish we could have somebody who rides a bear. And then you get Trump. Oh, hey. Right? So I would say that mission accomplished. with the interview. Was Tucker Carlson played? Maybe. Was Tucker Carlson handcuffed by the questions? Maybe. Don't know. Is Tucker Carlson in on it? That's another question. And I look, I think it's worth asking. And again, I do think Tucker has some kind of investment in the future of his kids. I do think that. But is he misguided? Does he see some kind of unique alliance emerging from this where you have like Russia and the US now sort of kind of running things together against China? I don't know. At the end of the day, it was great that it came out and we had this kind of global event. But on the other hand, it really illustrated this stark contrast between what we have theoretically and what we'd like to have. And then this other guy lecturing us about, well, this is how you got here. And this is what your future is. And you deserve it. That's what it came down to, really. So I've thought about it. And, as a country, we're really in a jam because we don't really have any people like a Putin who could, I'm not only talking about like Putin as a statesman or like Putin as an international figure of intrigue. Let's use Elon Musk, for example, even though he's from South Africa, could not be president. Let's use somebody, even though I don't like the guy, but let's use Mark Cuban. Just Mark Cuban as an example. Let's say Mark Cuban had even more money than he does. And let's say Mark Cuban was really, kind of a cutting edge technological or a champion of technology, like a Peter Thiel kind of character, right? Let's say he was like that. And let's say he had political aspirations. This is the type of person that we would need to be a part of something new in this country. So my plan, this is what I would do. If we didn't have the interference of the so-called deep state, right? Or, these dual citizens that have literally infiltrated our government, whether it's the Chinese or the Israelis or the Russians who are covert, or it's the cartels, because that's really what's happened. The body of the country has been infiltrated by global parasitic vermin, and it's eating us from the inside out. We're being hollowed out. And it's all of these politicians who are either blackmailed, extorted, or they are completely bought and paid for with special interests who cannot represent us. That's how we got here. Whether it's Jeffrey Epstein or AIPAC or McDonnell Douglas or Pfizer or Moderna, right? These are the entities that have crawled inside of the people who make policy decisions and who have sold us out. And it is through those inputs and those entities that we're being hollowed out. We're kind of like, the metaphor I'd use would be like the Japanese bark beetle, who infested all these oak trees in California. And on the outside, the oak tree looked fine, but on the inside, it was hollow. And that tree was tinder. And that was a big problem with a lot of forest fires in California back in the 90s and the 2000s. They didn't clear them. That's what's happened. And we don't really have even like a third line of defense for any of this. That's a problem. Because completely sane voices who have a visionary capacity, like my make-believe model of Mark Cuban, or somebody like Mark Cuban could sit down and say, hey, look, I got a plan. And here's the plan. The plan is that we're going to cancel any debt that we have with any foreign nation. Period. End of story. We're going to cancel the debt. Now, the World Bank and the IMF, they may not do it, but as a country, we're going to do it. And then what we're going to do is we are going to embark on a 21st century Marshall Plan for underdeveloped countries. And we are going to use the best technology at our disposal in order to facilitate and accelerate their development. And then we are going to plug in Friedman-style economics so that once they get up to speed, this is the model and this is how they're best going to be served by the rapid evolution and acceleration of that model. That's how you change the world, right? All boats rise. And then what do those countries do? They become beholden to the country that set it all up. China is kind of doing this in its own way, but they're fucking brutal. Like if you don't like their model or their method, like say in Central Africa, when it comes to coltan and the rare earth mineral stuff, you're fucked, right? You will be taken out and whipped. So China is kind of they're trying to do this, right? They'll take these governmental leaders from Africa and they'll take them to China and they'll sit them down, they'll school them in their version of politics and their model, right? That's what we're competing against. And if we want to win the hearts and minds of the world back, that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. And by the way, we can do it here at home as well, right? We need to reimagine in, industrial production. That gets back to the beginning of the show. We were talking about maker culture. That's what we need. We need kind of a cultural revolution when it comes to individual production, Main Street, using things like 3D printers and hemp and reinvesting, right, in the infrastructure and the people that are hungry for it. We don't need more Apple Vision Ones. Like that's just so dystopic and completely, in some ways, nihilistic, right? We don't need more of that. What we need are hands-on systems, hands-on production in conjunction with technological development that can liberate our own fucking people here, right? When was the last time we had shop class in our high schools? We don't. Those things have been lost. They've been lost in the cultural wars, and we need them. We need to have those things back again and have this infusion where things like 3D printers and technology that kids love is like, hey, you know that you can do that and then you can use these tools to create something? Like that's what we need. And if we did that with the rest of the world and we plug in kind of the Friedman economic system, which is, basically capitalism with a lot of government intervention, watch them take off. That's how you change the world. But we don't have the appetite for it. We don't have the we don't have the consensus for that. We're too invested and infested with the military-industrial complex and regime change and everything that goes along with that, which is horrible. And maintaining our bases all over the world, right? What if our bases became these centers of 21st century industry, and we brought these people in and said, this is how you do it. We're going to show you how to do it, and you can do it on your own, right? And you can raise up your standard of living. Do you think that those people ultimately would be grateful? I do. What do people around the world feel about this country now? Resentment. On so many levels, they resent the fact that they don't have what we have and carpet bombed their countries, or we've set up regulations in a way that make it almost impossible for them to kickstart their country, their economy, their world. But plenty of NGOs will come in and corporations will come in and do that and exploit their resources. Right? We have to completely turn this thing inside out and upside down. And it's not, if we did that, it wouldn't be a position of weakness. If anything, it'd be a position of power. And then what would the Russias and the Chinas do to the world? Be like, whoa, what are these people doing? They didn't do this before. And what would it force China to do, who's already kind of doing it? It would force them to up their game. Now all of a sudden, China's got a competitor in that world. That's what we need to do. And I don't know if there's anybody in this version of the US that can do that. I just don't. I don't think they have the backing, the gumption, the wherewithal, and the stomach to take on all comers. Oh, well, that's just another version of colonialism. That's inverted colonialism. Don't you understand what you're doing? Yeah, I do. We're trying to make these people's lives better and give them the tools so that they can engage in some level of meaningful production. That's what we're doing. It's not colonialism. All right, that's kind of what I wanted to get off of my chest today. And, I would say just be careful with this shit. Be careful. And at the end of the day, we're going to have to figure this out ourselves. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. And there may be a voice or two out there. But I'm going to tell you something right now. If you're watching this video, there's a very good chance that you are more informed, more aware, have the tools and the understanding to embrace this kind of idea or process, or I don't know what you would call it, blueprint, than 95% of the other people in the world who are in this country. If you're watching this and you kind of understand what I'm talking about, you're way ahead of the curve. And when you're way ahead of the curve, what happens? Oh, you're an idealist. That'll never work. That'll never work. And then guess what? Somewhere, somebody 5 years down the line will bring it up and they'll talk about it and they'll try to install it. And guess what? You were there first. See, this is what I was talking about. Well, gee, how about that? You were kind of right. Right? Like, I'm just saying that if you are here watching this, you understand what I'm talking about. And this is the kind of Aquarian future we need. This whole idea, all boats rise. And wouldn't it be better if this country was leading that charge in a real way and not a bullshit, exploitative, well, if we don't do this, Russia will do it, or China will do it, or fill in the blank will do it. That would be the way to go about doing it. And to demonstrate it in a way that would be prosperous and empowering. And then guess what? You put in a system, theoretically, if we could clean up our own fucking act with our own fucking government, of fair governance that reflects sort of the Friedman economic values and this technology and production that accelerates them quickly and brings them into the 21st century. And then as far as religion or organizing principle goes, I don't have a lot to say about that. But I do think if you're talking about economic ideas, which are about the quality of the product, right, and the quality of the people who are engaged in the production and the distribution of the product, and those things are kind of baked into it, then there's kind of a inherent morality that is connected to that. And you skip steps and you skip processes And guess what happens? Everything becomes degraded again. And maybe you think that it's just human nature to do that, that humans are invariably cheap or cunning or want to short circuit the process so they can profit off it in even better ways. Well, maybe that's true to a certain extent. But ultimately, the game changer is people taking pride in the things that they create, people taking pride in the culture that is creating those things, people taking pride in the land that it comes from. And when you have all of those things, what do you have? You have good self esteem. You have people that aren't demoralized, they have morale. And it takes a hell of a lot to bring those people down. That's a game changer. And, you know, you can say it starts here at home. I'd agree with that. I would totally agree with that. So, what would I extol the virtues of? Go out and create something, create something, turn it into a product or an idea or a publication or whatever. Go out and create something. And then maybe you'll stumble upon something that you're good at. And then maybe somebody else wants to help you. And then the next thing you know, your life becomes a very different reflection of what it used to be and what it could be. All right, I'm out of here. Just a quick little 2-hour jaunt in my breakdown of Russia, Putin, Tucker Carlson, and everything else that goes in between. Let's see. Any comments here? Let's get some comments. Tucker was a little over his head. I'd agree with that. Putin's in a different league altogether. I thought Putin was very diplomatic. Of course he is. He's a Libra. He's going to be diplomatic. He's always diplomatic. He's measured. He's calm. He's very good at what he does. He's extremely good at what he does. And it puts everything into context of what we don't do or what our leaders don't do in this country, right? Putin is a old school diplomat. I got that, Maria. Yes, I would agree with that. We're still talking about the psycho killer in Tennessee. I hope they caught him. Did not look like he had terminal cancer to me. I think there's more than one Putin. Let's see. That was my first thought too. What did it accomplish, and why are we giving it so much screen time? I agree. I agree. Putin did say American and European tax dollars being stolen from taxpayers, and this country is run by the CIA, which is news for most Americans, I guess. So most Americans who would need to hear it probably aren't watching Vladimir Putin. I'm just saying. Tom says Yuri Bezmenov spilled the beans on that and what the communists were planning. The interview humanized Putin, whereas the media has painted him as the big bad. Yeah. I mean, if people ever, and look, if you paid attention to Putin and paid attention to some of the things he said, going all the way back to like crises in Syria when Obama was president, you kind of knew who he was. I don't think Russia is pushing the communist agenda any longer. I don't either, but I also think that they want to win. Seeger says we lost the Cold War. I totally agree. Totally agree we lost the Cold War, 100%. Steve says, we lose every war. Seems to be that way. Yeah, Yeltsin was a lush, and he was way in over his head. Putin said clearly CIA is running U.S. Are they? Are they? Really? I think the CIA is an instrument. I don't think they're running the U.S. No, I don't think they're running the U.S. I'll tell you who's running the U.S. The dual citizens are running the U.S. And the CIA works for them. CIA Carlson. Tucker did have that really weird admission that he had worked for law enforcement. When I played that video of him like last week, I think that was interesting. Who else do we have? The person that starts the fight usually loses the fight. That's real life as opposed to a movie. It depends on what you do with the fight. If you start a fight and you're able to deliver a knockout blow within the first 5 seconds of the fight, game over. Depends on the fight. Let's see. Putin was correct that the Western nations could have supported Russia after the fall of the US. That's true. That's true. Yeah. And at the same time, there were plenty of Western companies in Russia. So it wasn't as if they weren't there. Let's see. Let NATO US corporation gracefully find a way out of this Ukraine situation. Sure. But at the end of the day, it still favors Russia because we are burning all kinds of weapons and money, right? There's a profound lack of substance in our society. I agree, 100%. Okay, can we just hold a space for Kelly and the kids and everybody in her neighborhood to be safe? Let's just do that. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with the history lesson. I don't disagree with that at all. Because one of the things that Americans don't have is context. We don't. And I think that was fine. I think look, anybody who has a modicum of interest in this subject would have done a little bit of research. And again, I could pick just about anybody in this chat and ask them about this question. And they may not be as completely informed CR user as you are, but they'll have some background. They'll have some knowledge about this. And is it going to impact the mainstream person who hears it? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. And would it change their ideas about the contextualization? Sure. But if you're somebody who's on the left and is demonizing Putin, which is what they've done really since around 2016, you're not going to watch this. And all the nuance in the world won't matter. Just saying. Hey, I'm a man over Florida. What's up? What's up, Dr. Longo? Good to see you. Obama's definitely CIA. Absolutely. Let's see. We were a dying legacy brand like Honda and Toyota. I don't know about Toyota. I would definitely put Buick in there. Everybody in the world stage is CIA. Maybe. Maybe. I think there are some who are CIA. I don't think you can discount MI6, which has been in the spy business a lot longer than the CIA. In fact, MI6 was the inspiration for the CIA. And MI6 has really got their claws in the intelligence world, right? Especially as they work hand in glove with Tavistock. And then you have Mossad. And from what I've heard, CIA is on contract with Mossad, right? Like the Mossad hires out the CIA and not the other way around. So I don't think the CIA is this complete global umbrella. I do think that they are contract for hire, for sure. But there are other intelligence agencies that are in the game as well, for sure. To be fair, I think that's true of all countries. Yes. Good comments in here, you guys. You guys are smart. Clinton and Obama chosen from the enigmatic smiles whilst they shafted the masses. Yeah, I mean, they're both. The thing about Clinton and Obama is that they are both populists and outsiders, right? And I guess, I mean, they kind of cut the cloth early of doing that. Let's see. I'm actually really concerned about the USA right now, not going to lie. I didn't sleep well last night. Also, strange dreams. I did watch Tucker Putin before sleep. It disturbed me. Let's see. What else do we have here? Yeah, a lot of people are influenced by what they watch before they go to bed. Stephanie Ramirez has some good comments today. Nixon looks like a liberal compared to today's Republicans. Absolutely. Fran chimes in, Biden is beyond embarrassing. I don't know if we have a word for Biden. Seinfeld is funny. I agree with that. Biden is part of the humiliation ritual. Absolutely, 100%. America is no longer worth dying for. Okay. It doesn't matter who is president, the great experiment has failed. Isn't that part of the outcome of demoralization? Let's see. We can all identify with the sniffy grandpa that wants to trade ice cream for showers. Tondar, that's fucking funny. That is funny. Let's see. He graduated from the University of Georgetown. And he got kicked out of England with his Rhodes Scholarship because he raped somebody. Danny Katz, what's happening, Danny? Good to see you here. Got to get you back on the show. It's been a while. Let's see. Who else do we have? All countries are full of propaganda. I would agree with that. Let's see. Of course they do. As Putin said, no one's propaganda is as prolific as America's. I'd agree with that. Every sizable, agreed. I don't disagree with any of that. No real leadership here. Let's see. I was in California too long. Maybe. I can still be a dreamer, right? Let's see. What else do we have here? The elite have to control independent media somehow. Carlson's most likely CIA running an op. Possibly. Yeah. I think he's got he certainly has the background, doesn't he? Certainly has the background when you look at his father and his evolution. You know, I used to communicate with a guy who was friends with Tucker Carlson's brother. So he used to go to the Carlson house and hang out there. So he had a few stories about it. And, you know, he had more stories about Tucker's brother, who seems to be pretty cool. And Tucker was kind of a stuffy shirt when he was there. Like he wasn't a terrible human, but he also wasn't that accessible. So a little bit of inside baseball from the Carlson household. Let's see. What else do we have? It was news for the general public. Yes. I would agree with that. Let's see. Tucker wanted to be CIA. He said he was part of law enforcement in this one video I played last week. Really? What kind of law enforcement is that, Tucker? Let's see. What else we have? I like the Theo Vaughn podcast. Thought it was really good. Let's see. The red strain Kabbalah bracelet is very concerning, worn by celebs from Madonna to Stephen Colbert and even Podesta. Could be an extreme oral tradition Sabbatean offshoot. I didn't get that message from the interview. Okay. I'm listening a little bit behind, but fully after, with your point that Russia is still behind the propaganda campaign. Have you heard of a guy, Christopher John Bjerknes? He gets into this. Yes. I've seen many of his videos. He had a very good channel before YouTube shit canned it. I'd love to interview Putin. That'd be fun. It would be a challenge. No disrespect, but the U.S. is long overdue for a lesson. Yeah, maybe. Let's play that out. What would that look like, and whom would benefit from that lesson the most? Do you think that the lesson of hardship, economic hardship, starving, crime-riddled streets, third world style street tactics would serve people a lesson in this country? If that's the lesson that we're talking about. And what would they learn from it? I would say that one of the things that we in this country have taken for granted clearly is I wouldn't call it privilege, but the status that many were able to access. I did not say born into, but access. And that we as a country have gotten incredibly soft. And the things that have been available to us, I think we have taken for granted. Now, those things that we've taken for granted have ultimately been weaponized against us. And that's the other side of that coin. So, for instance, we take for granted that we have bountiful sort of racks of produce in our grocery stores. But we don't completely understand that a lot of those groceries are genetically modified. And a lot of the goods that we consume contain things like phthalates and microplastics and the things that are a byproduct of sort of the fruits of our labor and the fruits of the land, right? So our own abundance in some ways has been weaponized against us, which is another interesting way to look at it, right? So we luxuriate in the things that are easy and available, but what we really don't understand is what they've done to those things, right? So it's an interesting sort of dilemma to be a part of, but I would agree with you that as a culture, we have become incredibly soft. And do we need to feel the backhand of scarcity and loss and hardship in order to appreciate it? Maybe that's what it takes. Maybe that's what it takes. He told us more than Biden has. That's not saying much. That is not saying much, honestly. Yeah. A yogurt machine could have told us more than what Biden has. Newsom Biden had Xi here. How is that not worse than the interview? I'm not saying either one is worse. What I'm trying to say is that the interview provided a disparity in theoretical leadership, right? And at the same time, I don't think it would be out of the question that what we were dealing with was a very subtle form of psychological warfare and propaganda. I don't think it's an unfair question. And I'm not here to stand up for Biden or Xi or Newsom, who are in whoever they are, right? I'm just asking a question that I think is worth postulating, right? And I do think that if, like for instance, do you think that Putin knows who did 9/11? Of course he does. No, those are questions I would have liked to have asked him. Oh, it's Jennifer Clark's birthday. We're going to have to play you a happy birthday song. He knows who did 9/11, who did Nord Stream. He knows who set up the biolabs, but what good would it do him for him to expose it there? That's a good point, Tom. It's a good point. But I think under the right context, he could have taken one of those and brought it back to a larger idea, and it could have been kind of a thunderclap. People without history is a lot lost mass of people not worthy to be called civilization. There's some truth to that. You have to have historical context. The interview went out to normies who needed to hear the reality of the situation we're in. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But the left, what do you think what number do you think the left is in our culture? 30%, 40%? They're not going to listen to that interview. Just like they won't sit down and have interviews with anybody on the so-called right. So what is that interview? I mean, I think that the interview is going to touch a lot of people simply because of the technology that's involved. We'll see where it goes. Let's see. That's a good point. That is a good point, Autumn. Who else do we have? Imagine if Putin ran the USA. Well, that's a wet dream for a lot of people, isn't it? If we start to forget, we lose existence itself as we lose capability on the realm of soul. The alphabet agencies are running the country, which is true. I don't fully agree with that. I mean, I think they're part of the apparatus, but I don't fully agree with that. Quite honestly, if you want my opinion, I think Israel's running this country. Because they get anything they fucking want. Okay? They get anything they want. And when you have a woke chancellor of Harvard get grilled by people who are more than likely dual citizens, and they get grilled by that person and put them in a corner and saying, if you do not denounce this, then you are a fascist and you support genocide. And that person within 2 weeks loses their job. Who has the power in that situation? I could talk shit about the CIA all fucking day. And are people going to come for me? But if I went on a rampage, right, and I went after the third rail every show, how long do you think this show would be up on YouTube? So I ask you, in general, using those kinds of standards, who's really running things? I'd agree with that. Israel is a British-Israeli Foundation-crested company. That's why they want William on the throne in the new temple. Period. China has a stake in it. They're part of the deconstruction. Which country in the world has 3/4 of its House of Representatives paid by Israel with dual nationality? None. Anyway, I think that I had to get my own platform. Of course. I do think that the CIA is clearly involved at a high level, right? They're the company, and they are engaged in works, right? They're engaged in works. So do they play a role? Absolutely. But to say that they run the world and this country, I think is just not taking the totality into account, right? Like, who has extortion and blackmail on most American politicians? And I'll leave that as a rhetorical question. Okay. All right. Okay. Are we good? Are we there? Look, I think that the interview is worth watching. I just think that there are a lot of missing blanks, and that there could have been some deeper revelation. That's all I'm saying. All right, I'm out of here. If you're into sports and astrology tonight, join us 6 p.m. right here. Me and Al Dog. We're going down some rabbit holes, and it'll be fun rabbit holes, but rabbit holes nonetheless. Thanks for being here. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to step in what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thanks for being here. Hit the like, and bye for now.